Yeah, been here before. This is several members of our Board of Aldermen. Some introductions real quick. We're going to get started. We're going to let Anderson Engineering, Robin and Jeff, our representatives from there, talk about the bond issue that we're considering. And obviously, there's a lot of information to pack into a town hall meeting, and I think we've talked about it. We'll do this as long as we have to make sure everybody is well told what's going on, what's happening, and what our options are as far as the city goes. So, would you guys like to introduce yourself and your colleagues?
Danny Gillum. Karen here. Harlan. John.
Joe Drew. And then go to number 3 and you care for the city clerk's office on page.
Also, please.
That you signed the public hearing notice, so we need everyone's name that was here.
Without further ado, we'll turn it over for some information from Jeff and Anderson.
Hope somebody speaks louder than what he did.
Thank you all for coming this evening. The more people that show up to these kind of things, the better, because the information, everybody can hear the same information rather than going to the coffee shop and hear it secondhand. It kind of gets muddled and sometimes. The city is always looking at ways to leverage dollars and stuff to do maintenance work. We're here to talk about the water system tonight. The water system has been in the works for this community for a long time. It's a continual maintenance item. The city is continuing to spend maintenance dollars on the infrastructure. The infrastructure continues to get older, and we have an opportunity with some of the infrastructure dollars that the government is funding to make a pretty good dent in some of the things that the city is going to need maintenance-wise in the upcoming years, but then also to leverage government dollars and get some loan forgiveness or grant dollars to further that maintenance, so we can kind of be done with some of these things for quite a while. Pat O'Brien is our project engineer. Robin Secretary, my wife, she's the project coordinator. We've been working with the city for a number of years. I'm going to turn this over to Pat. Pat's working on a government report for you all. We got government dollars. Bree and our office helped to get a preliminary engineering report funded. Application, we applied for ARPA dollars to try to get grant dollars there. ARPA didn't come through. Dollars were pretty much spent on the east side of the state, and I think there was 371 applicants and 140 so we didn't get any money that way, but we have another program through Missouri DNR called the SRF, State Revolving Fund, and they are, I wouldn't say flush with money, but I'd say the infrastructure dollars are adding to their normal program, and I'm going to turn it over to Pat and let him kind of describe the project for you, what the needs are, and then how we can leverage the dollars and do what we can. So, turn it over to Pat. Thank you.
most of my talking points here are going to be off of these two charts here. There's also a graphical display of what we're talking about trying to get done for the water system over here. It's not a lot of detail. I wanted to get down in the weeds on details tonight. Okay, thank you. But it's a good summary. But before we start, I'd like to re-emphasize something Jeff said. When we first started working with this, looking at your water system, based upon the procedures and policies that were in effect, we looked at 2 or 3 options, and one of them was to develop a comprehensive approach to really do a lot of good things for the water system that needed it. A lot of renewal of your older lines, a lot of renewal of your hydrants, which most of them don't work, and a few other things. Unfortunately, at the time, to fund, the estimated cost for a comprehensive project is about $4 million, and that's still a good number. When we first started looking at this, based upon what was going on at the state funding levels and what their policies were as far as to how much your rates had to be to qualify for any grant consideration, it basically looked like that we were going to have to borrow in the form of a loan if we wanted to do the comprehensive project, more or less the full $4 million. However, since that time has gone by, as Jeff mentioned, the state has been able to get more of this infrastructure money. Now, this is not to be confused with the ARPA money, which we put in a request for that, which is a total grant. The competition was very fierce in the state. There were 350-some people put in for those grants, and only about 10% of them got it. Unfortunately, nobody in southwest Missouri got one. So we tried to get the whole thing grant funded, but that didn't work. But now with the monies the state is telling us that will be in place, now there is a very good opportunity to basically still do the comprehensive project and not have to do piecemeal things, which, we'll do some now, but put off to later, when it may cost more. So sooner or later, these lines are going to need replacing, all of them, that are in this comprehensive project, to basically get it about half loan and half grant. In other words, we're going to be able to get roughly $2 million of grant money for the city if they're willing to couple that with a $2 million low-interest loan to fund their portion of it. You don't have to put in any cash up front or anything like that. It's a low-interest loan. I'll talk about that more in the future during my presentation. So, but what I want to emphasize is the timing is very good right now, given the funds that the state has been able to get from the federal government because of these infrastructure programs, that we should be able to get half this project and possibly even a little bit more of it through a grant. But we can't promise anything more than half at this time, okay? So based on that thing and the fact that you all are also going to be possibly looking at another rate increase to meet your operating deficit, which the Bree and the city is going to talk about that a little bit more after my presentation. That further strengthens the fact that we can probably get at least half of this project in a grant money, because the state realizes you can't just keep piling on more and more rate increases. So anyway, let's talk now about the project itself. What are the major components of the project? And when you come to look up here, you can read this chart here, and you'll see heavy lines, bolded lines. We would be proposing to replace about 40,000 feet, or install 40,000 feet of new line in your system, primarily 6-inch, a little bit of 8-inch, and occasionally in a couple of isolated areas, perhaps a little bit smaller, where it's like in a cul-de-sac or something, we're not going anywhere with it. That would be about 60% of your existing system, we are proposing to replace all of the older, smaller, 4-inch and below, non-PVC metallic piping in the system, which is a mixture of cast iron, wrought iron, bare steel, galvanized, you name it. This is where you are starting to have more and more of your leak failures from. And so that's why the concentration on that. You do have a fair amount of newer 6-inch pipe in the system. You do have some newer 4-inch pipe in the system, which we will propose to leave since it is newer pipe. And while it has some capacity restrictions, we have enough other newer lines going in that those won't be a detriment to the whole system. And we do have a few places of smaller plastic line that were run for whatever reason out some long stretches of run, like down here on the southeast end of town. It's newer pipe, it only serves like 1 or 2 customers. It's either 1 or 2 inch pipe, and quite frankly, it's not economically feasible to spend all that money to replace pipe to serve 1 or 2 customers, when in fact it is newer plastic pipe. In hindsight, that pipe would probably put it as a 6-inch line, but that's water under the bridge. But basically, we are going to replace, with the proposal, about 60% of the piping in your town, which is the older, 4 inches smaller, older metallic pipe. Now, the 4 inch is also important because when you put in a new pipe these days, if you want to set a fire hydrant on that pipe, you have to run at least a 6-inch line. In the old days, when your system was first built, the state would allow you to put hydrants on 4-inch lines. That changed a good number of years ago. So any new lines that you put in that you want to hang a fire hydrant on, it has to be a 6-inch line or bigger. Okay? So when we put these new lines in around town in the various places, it will include not only the new line, the main line as we call it, which will be primarily 6-inch lines, PVC lines, the newer, heavier, high-grade stuff. We will include fire hydrants at the appropriate locations. The hydrant locations you have now are not that bad. Unfortunately, about 80% of your hydrants do not work. They're old for whatever reason, they quit working, you can't buy parts for them. And so really, there are a lot of places in town right now, even though it looks like you have a fire hydrant in front of your house, it just as well not be there because it won't work. So it's kind of a false security that you're having. When we put the new lines in, there will be new hydrants put at the appropriate intervals, so that everybody will have a much better shot at fire protection. We will also put a lot more inline valves consistent with current design standards in the new lines. Let me explain that. In the old days, like on your system, it was very commonplace to only put in a few valves, maybe one every so many thousands of feet. Well, the problem with that is if you have a break, or nowadays, quite frankly, a dig-in, let's say your handy-dandy fiber optic contractor is down, he decides to go right to the middle of the water line. You got to shut the water off to get that line repaired. Unfortunately, on your system right now, as Scott and the fellows can confirm, they may have to go back hundreds of or thousands of feet in either direction to find valves to shut it off. So you're going to have a whole lot of people out of water while that repair is being made. With our new installations we put in, we try and strategically put the valves in places where at most maybe 2 to 3 blocks of line would have to be shut off at any given time because we have strategically located valves. Does that cost a little more? Yeah, but it's consistent with good design and it's included in our cost estimates. We would also, where it needed, I know you do have some newer service lines in town, but where the old service lines are old, typically junk steel pipe, we would replace those up to the meter. So it would be a comprehensive improvement on your system. The project also proposes to purchase new water meters for your system. You have a lot of old water meters out in the system that are causing difficulties with accurate reading. A lot of them are probably running slow, which means, quite frankly, you may not be paying your fair share compared to your neighbor who maybe for whatever reason they've had to change his water meter out because the old one just flat quit. Well, if we replace these meters, and this is not a huge investment, you're probably talking on a whole project, $40,000-$50,000. It will allow all new, better, accurate, but it will also allow equitable distribution. Everybody will be paying their fair share based upon an accurate meter reading. Now, for some people, that means their bill's going to go up a little bit just because of that. But let's face it, folks, if your meter's been running slow compared to your neighbors, you've been kind of taking a break all these years, and it's just not really fair. Okay? We would also have some maintenance of your existing water towers in the project. The one over here needs painting and cleaning, some other miscellaneous maintenance on it. The older tower up here, we would probably put what's called an altitude control valve on it because right now it tends to overflow before this tower gets filled up. Don't ask me why it was done that way years ago. Quite frankly, it was a foul up on the engineer's part at the time. So you're restricted to how much water you can put in this tank here, or else you start overflowing this one over here. They do have a solution for that. It would be an altitude valve that would close off when this one's getting higher to keep that one up, but then when they start dropping, it will open back up. So it will give you more storage on your system, which is important. In the event of an emergency or in the event of a fire, you have more water up in the air to help fight the fire. Again, but that is a very minimal cost, those things. One other thing that we would do would be to include in the project is a trailer-mounted electric standby generator. They run around $50,000, but in the event of a power outage, you could take those to either well, hook them up, you still have well service. We don't need one for each well. One would be sufficient. Plus, also, it would have the advantage, even though it's not being bought for this purpose per se, if you have an issue with the power outage at one of your sewer lift station pumps, it can be taken out there and moved up temporarily as well, because it will be on a trailer. It's not a pad mounted. It's mobile. It's portable. So that's the components, basically, of the project. Okay, my next question is, why are we proposing all this and what would be the benefits? And I've already talked a little bit about this, so I'll kind of skip around here a little bit. Said, most of the water lines in your system, the ones that are being replaced anyway, are now getting right close to 90 years old. Now, how much longer will they last before they start really leaking? That's a hard question. Difficult to answer. Soil conditions are different from block to block, pipe conditions, original metal condition, change. But how many things in your house are 90 years old and you think are still going to last a long time? That's the analogy. What if you have a 90-year-old vehicle? No offense to the older people. I'm in my 70s. I can say that. And again, I stress that this is an opportunity time to get half of this money in a free grant mode. But you've got a lot of older lines in the system. Because of that, you're already losing at least 20% of the water you pump is going out through leaks in the system. That's probably going to keep getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, right now, that also means cost for electricity to fire the pump, cost for chlorine to treat it. How many people have been to the store lately and bought a bottle of chlorine? What are you getting for it now? $6 a gallon? What was it 2 years ago? $2 a gallon? Or something like that? Well, the city's having to see the same price increases on the chlorine they use to treat your water. Okay. So prices are continuing to go up. Maintenance and repair costs for the older lines will continue to rise if they are not replaced. Again, how quick will they rise? Well, I I don't have a crystal ball that tells me that any one line in town will last 10 years, or 5 years, or 15, or 20 years. But again, they're nearing 90 years of age. So they're starting to see most of the end of their useful service life is definitely inside. Okay. Like I talked about the lack of valves on your system. Okay, the new lines that go in will be somewhat larger, and we will have, there are several areas in town that have right now long runs of dead-end line. Over here on Parkview, you're fed by one single 4-inch line, and you've got one hydrant over here that in no way will provide any type of recognized fire protection. Down here on the southeast 75th, there's a gap in the line here, so you've got a long run of stuff. You've got a long run up here G Street and going up Walnut here where there's a big gap. There's another one somewhere, I don't remember where it was now. Oh, out here, again, by this line that leads the school and south is on an excessively long day. We would, as part of the package, where feasible and economical, we would tie those lines together. Several benefits. It gives you a little bit better pressure. It gives you more reliability, so if you get a line broken in one direction, you can still have a feed from the other and you'll have valve and you can valve it off. It also, loops tend to improve your water quality. Now, a lot of your town has loops already, and you're probably not seeing this, but if you are on the end of the line, it's fairly long, particularly in the summer when it gets hot. You may start getting some post taste and odors like, and the city has to go out and open up, if they can, if there is a hydrant that will work, a way to flush that older, what we call stale water. Well, if we install loops wherever practical in the system, the water continues to circulate, so you don't have these dead pockets of water accumulating where you don't have enough users to pull it out. And this is more noticeable in the summer with the higher temperature of the water in the tanks. Again, no one item here is driving this particularly, but it's all coming together into a comprehensive plan. And again, I stress, this is a chance to get this done for about half the cost of what it might have meant otherwise because of the grants that are going to be available. Okay, I mentioned as a byproduct of the installation, we will be putting in new fire hydrants all over town, fire hydrants that work. Those coupled with the newer lines and the larger lines and the loop lines, we'll see that virtually everybody in town, with possibly the exception of these two customers way out here on 75th Street, but we're not going to replace that line. And I'm not sure they're in the city or not. Are they, Scott? I don't know. Anyway, the point is virtually everyone will have access to a fire hydrant that will give them recognized fire protection. Because most of you people, you may have a hydrant within a few hundred feet of your house, but it's probably not working. Talked about that already. We talked about the maintenance. We talked about the generators. We talked about the new water meters. Okay. Now comes the painful part. Money. Nobody likes to give money. I know that. I don't like to give money. I don't have to. Sometimes you have to make an investment in yourself, in your community. Oh, I'm going to tell you now what we think how this is going to work. The total estimated cost of the project, the way we see it right now, is slightly under $4 million, like I said, 3.9, we'll say $4 million in round. This is a fully funded estimate, includes construction, engineering, administration, allowance for some contingencies, it's the whole ball of wax. In other words, there's not, well, this is for that, but now we're going to add on this later on. This is a comprehensive estimate. And while we talk about this, the way this works, assuming we get the government funding, we will put the improvements out for bid, probably in this case, only one contract, since it's basically all going to be 95% line work. But let me digress. You have two very good operational wells in your system right now, and with the number of customers you have, which is 325 plus or minus, we don't see the need to invest money in putting in a third well. It would be totally redundant, and so that is not included. We also are not proposing to add any, at this time, any additional storage, because while it could be a little more, it's not worth the dollars it would take to put another tower up for the benefit you would get from it. Like I said, we are going to address a little bit by putting a control valve over here so we can more fully utilize this tank over here. But storage and wells is really not a critical aspect of your system, so they are not included in the project at this time. Now down the road, that can be addressed if need be. But right now, with 325 users, two wells, they're both functioning. It's generally, and they both have good production rates. So, same with the storage. If I was to put in this storage tank the way I would made it a bit bigger, but you know, should have, would have, should have. It's not worth trying to add another one now for the limited benefit of the future storage. Okay. How is this going to be paid for? That's the magic number. It's a big concern. We're proposing to apply to the Missouri Department of the Natural Resources. They have a program called the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. It is basically a source of low-interest loans. The loans are typically about 30% the interest rate of what you would have to go out if you borrowed the money from a commercial lender like a bank or somebody. Right now, given the rates, that's probably going to be in the range of a 1.5% interest loan. Don't know where you can borrow money that cheaply elsewhere right now. Their target is to keep it at 30% or below of the commercial rate. Okay. Now I can't tell you exactly what it would be because I don't know exactly when you'll actually get to the point of doing the project and having to take out the loan. It could vary a little bit because interest rates do go up and down, but that is a planning figure for right now. The loans will be applying for a 30-year loan to keep down the payments as low as possible. It's just like a home mortgage. We could go for a 20-year mortgage, but that's going to make your 20-year loan, but that's going to make your payments and then your rate increase even higher. Now, if the loans also can be prepaid at any time without any penalty, or let's say because you've got a newer, better water system and you've got a sewer system, let's say you might actually get some development going on somewhere in the town where all of a sudden you added 100 or 200 customers. That additional money coming from those people could be used to prepay the loans. The loans are very flexible. They're user-friendly. Okay. Now then, when we first started looking at this, let me back up. Okay. However, here's the way it works in the state of Missouri. For an entity like a city, a county, school district, water district, to incur a long-term in debt like this, it cannot be done unless the voters of that subdivision, in this case, the voters in Golden City, approve a bond election amount. So